Hey everybody, welcome back to The Pressing Matters. I'm Scott. Thank you for tuning in today and thank you for your support. Today I have a great video for you. It's a full-on shootout of the car's Candio. 3 pressings, 2 systems, 3 sets of ears, and high-resolution audio files to download so you can hear for yourself over your own system what we heard that day. The reason I did it this way is because I did put out a video briefly for a couple of hours. I was so excited to get this out. I kind of was like, let me do a first impression video. I had just listened to this a couple times, the new Rhino High Fi, and kind of went on about the packaging and the limited nature of it, and some first impressions on the sound, in which I mentioned there's a lot of high frequency information, and there was a bit of a lack of deep bass on my system. But overall I was enthusiastic about it. But I thought about it and I said, let me take this down and replace it with a full-on shootout. It's only fair for people that are really looking to maybe upgrade a copy or change copies, or just want to know what these different pressings sound like on different systems, to give them a more broad overview and give myself a better take on what is available. So to that end, we did the extensive shootout. John and I spent the night before doing some modifications to my record cabinet and equipment stand. It needed some dividers because the wide expanse for albums kind of never, even if it's packed full, it's okay, but once you start to take things out, things can just move quickly, especially with the VSS sleeves being so slippery and the Tone Poets and stuff being so wide. You know the story if you have those and you use those sleeves. It can be a little slip-slidey thing, and I wanted to have new permanent dividers in there. So we did that. We took everything out, moved all the equipment, did the modification, cleaned everything, put back all the equipment, rewired everything carefully, dressed the wires properly, and left it at that for the evening. Next morning, we went out to Oswaldo's to listen to these 3 pressings on his system. I'm going to list his system in the description box. Oswaldo is the president of Let There Be Sound. He's got 30 years experience, at least, with high-end audio, and he's got great ears, and I trust his systems and I trust his judgment. So he's a great person to have on this unofficial panel, you could say. John is also a great audiophile, and he has a wonderful system and great ears as well. So, you know, this is very, very interesting, I think, for me and for other listeners to get 3 impressions of 3 pressings on 2 systems and get the audio files to boot. So we arrived at Oswaldo's and we started cleaning the records. And John told us the story of this record. John brought 3 copies of Candio. He brought the 3 other copies. I bought this one. This is mine. So, but I really have no dog in the race in this, and I want to make that clear. John brought his 3 copies. The one he bought the week it came out when he was a teenager. And John was brought up in a strict household, so his father censored his Candio cover. Yeah, that's right. He cut out the Vargas girl. He didn't think that was appropriate for his teenage son to be looking at. So I couldn't believe that story. I was like, wow, John. No wonder you're like, no. I was like, wow, John, that's terrible. I'm glad you saved the cover, though. It makes for an interesting story. This is the original label. This is the original mastering by George Marino. So we focused on that one. We did have another pressing that he brought, but to make it a little more simple, I focused on the original first pressing. This is the second one with the type. John also brought the Mobile Fidelity Sound Lab pressing from the MOFI era. I believe it's all analog, mastered by Shawn Britton. And then we have Kevin Gray's all analog Rhino High Fidelity edition that just came out. So we cleaned them all up and we put it on one of Oswaldo's systems that he chose for this. Oswaldo has no dog in the fight either. He wants to hear the best sounding pressing, and that's it. He pulls no punches. He's not afraid to say what he thinks about anything, especially when it comes to the sound of records, even if it goes against conventional wisdom. And he's riled up a few feathers with that too, but he's usually right on the money, in my opinion. So we listened to it on his system, which is listed in the description box below. We put on this one first. It was not in the best condition, even after cleaning, but you could tell, even through the surface noise and everything, that it's a good sounding record, typical of, the output around that time and the engineering, the mastering engineering of that time. It's a little bit lacking in some areas, but it's a good sounding record, and the way all of us heard it. And for many people, if they have a clean original, they'll be okay with that. They may be wondering whether they need to get the Rhino, if they're gonna offer some kind of revelation. I'll let you know what I think in a moment, but I was pretty impressed with the original. I felt it was a little compressed sounding, but overall a good listen. We moved on to the Mobile Fidelity, and that really opened up things. And I was like, wow, this is pretty amazing. This is going to be hard to top. I'm sometimes critical of MOFI, and so is Oswaldo, but we both agreed that, actually John as well, especially when John heard some of the other songs besides the lead-off track. Let's Go did sound pretty similar on these two, but once the songs like Double Life and what was the other one? Oh, It's All I Can Do, which you'll hear in the files, it became very apparent that the MOFI was a superb sounding record. Beautiful transparency, punch, very wide soundstage, much wider than the original. A depth and transparency that was really not evident on the original, and a nice warm presence throughout the mid bass and bass. I was very impressed, and I'm surprised, because some of the things from around this era I have criticized for being a little too bright, but this was not the case with this at all. Lovely sound, really appropriate for the record, but avoids any harshness or forwardness in that upper mid-range and treble, and it still has all the life and energy, I think, but presents it in a much more listenable way. The Rhino, John was kind of enthusiastic about the Rhino at first. He likes a lot of detail. That's his preference. He likes to hear detail. And for me, I'd rather hear a more musical presentation than lots of detail. I think Oswaldo is the same way. From what I gather from the few shootouts we've done, that's his preference as well. More musical, more lush presentation is to his taste. But in all of our opinion, this one had a little too much going on top. It was really, really not bright, but just a lot of detail thrown at you. And it kind of flattened things out a little bit compared to the MOFI. It has a lot of attractive qualities, no doubt. And I was attracted to it when I first heard it. But hearing the comparison on Oswaldo's system, I prefer the MOFI, and each of us pretty much was in agreement. John just had 1 foot over on the Rhino. All of us felt like the original sounded good for its time period, and if my suggestion is, if you have an original, you have a very good pressing. I think this one trumps it though, the MOFI. So then we went to the second stage of the evaluation. And this was really fun and interesting for me because, as many of you know, I've been wanting to upgrade my speaker system. And Oswaldo's been bringing over different speakers for me to try for a couple weeks or a month. You know, things that people have traded in or so forth. So, you know, I'm trying to get a good deal on a speaker, so buying used is probably a good idea. I've listened to the NOLA speaker that he brought over for a couple weeks. It was good. It was not quite what I was looking for, but it was a lot better than the ELACs that I had. And I was like, you know what? What else you got? Well, Oswaldo is the premier dealer for system audio in the United States. Now, you probably haven't heard of them. They're a Danish company. They don't have a lot of presence in the United States, but Oswaldo uses them in his system, and I heard his, but I was not ready for what he brought over here. This is a beautiful speaker. It is a $10,000 speaker. I've never had a $10,000 speaker in my room before. I'd be lucky if all my components add up to $10,000. So this was quite an upgrade, but it worked. It really worked. They are perfect for the room, and they're gorgeous. They sound magnificent, and they've given a big upgrade in sound. Huge, actually. And they work really well with the amp that I have. I think they could use a bit, maybe bloom a little bit more with a bit more power, but there's absolutely no question that the sound is on many leagues higher. So that's interesting to me. I'm like, oh my God, $10,000, but they are used. So if I do decide to get them, they will be a little bit less, actually a lot less. So John and I were here. Oswaldo didn't stay for the further listening. And we listened to all three again. And honestly, the opinion really didn't change. I felt like this system is giving me a lot more warmth and musicality and lower bass. So the Rhino sounded a little better, but I still felt like the presentation was too forward in the top. The MOFI just sounded great. It sounded great. There was no real reason to listen to the original, I don't think, especially in its condition. And you know, you really kind of want to hear clean audio when you have a new component on display. So honestly, the MOFI won my heart. I think for people that truly love this album and want to hear a more fleshed out presentation, the MOFI is the winner, no doubt about it. This will appeal to people that love detail, like John. I think he could live with this easily, and I can too, and I probably will. It's not a favorite album. I like it enough to have a copy, and this will do. But I think the MOFI is definitely worth considering. In both of these systems, it performed very well, beautifully, in fact. The way the space opened up and the depth apparent is unlike any of the other pressings. This is a little bit more constricted, I think, than the MOFI. The warmth, the bass is never overpowering on this. It never had deep bass to begin with, so what they did for EQ here just gives it a little more of an invite you in kind of presentation. I found it quite attractive. Guitars, vocals, and particularly drums sound incredible on this MOFI. I was like, wow, yeah. Really, they do sound great on this too. I think in the lower regions, these are similar, especially in the mid region. But when you get down to the bass, I think the MOFI does better than the Rhino. And above, my taste leaned more towards the MOFI than the Rhino. I find the Rhino to be a little too bright, so or forward in the treble. I don't want to say bright because that's a negative connotation, and it's not a bad sounding record by any means. We're talking about minute differences here, but I thought this would be valuable information for you. I hope you found some value in it, and you check out the files for yourself and see what you think on your system. You may come to a different conclusion because your priorities may be different. You may like a more forward, more detailed sound that may sound better on your system, or you may find that that's a little too much and you prefer a more rounded, more organic sound, in which case you may prefer the MOFI. But check out those files. I'll be very interested to hear the feedback on what you hear from them. Until next time, I'm Scott for The Pressing Matters. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.